Hello there, this is AD Robles, and you're listening to AD on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. All right, let's jump into it today. If you are watching this on video instead of listening to a podcast, I have on my screen a very crazy-looking woman. Now, this is Peppa from the Disney movie Encanto, which I actually really like the Disney movie Encanto. And I've talked about it on the channel before, and I can't remember if I mentioned this on the channel before, but Disney, they're very good storytellers, and they're genius level subversion. Peppa is an interesting character. She might be my favorite character because if you don't know, Encanto is about a Colombian family. And they're like magical family, whatever. And Peppa is the one that Disney decided to put all of the typical Latina stereotypes. They put it into one character, Peppa, and then every other character doesn't really have the typical stereotypes of a Latina. You know what I'm talking about? Like the kind of stereotypes where, they're very emotional, they're hot and cold. They're a little bit controlling, they'll cut you if you step out of line kind of thing. Those are the stereotypes of Latinos. Don't worry, I am allowed to say it since I am Latino. Anyway, so they put all those negative stereotypes in Peppa. And then what's so interesting about it is then they do that, and then they make Peppa white. They make Peppa white because, if you know anything about Latina culture, there's a lot of European mixed with African, mixed with Indian and all of that. And so, Latinos are of all colors and shapes and sizes. And so everyone else in the family is, like a brownish Latino, but except for Peppa, the one person they put all the negative, Latina stereotypes in, they make her white. As white can be. That is some genius level subversion. And then they also make her married to a black guy, Felix. And Felix is like the nicest guy you could imagine. Like, he's a great father, he's a great husband. And Peppa's whole little magical power is that her mood changes the weather, which is terrible because she has no control over her emotions. And so she's really angry. All of a sudden there's a thunderstorm. She's really happy. It's sunny. But it's like constantly changing because she's a Latina stereotype, right? So her emotions are uncontrollable in that way. But Peppa walks all over her husband, Felix. Like Peppa is wearing the pants in that relationship. Felix is this black guy, kind of heavyset. He's like the nicest guy in the world, and their kids are really nice. But Peppa, the white Latina stereotype, walks all over Felix, which, again, genius level subversion. Disney, you got to take your hat off to people that are subverting our society so well. In any case, this is related to the content today, I promise. Should she preach, right? That's the question. Should she preach? Now, anyone who has a biblical understanding of, church order and church government and basically the Bible at a basic level knows the answer to the question, should she preach? And the answer is no, she should not preach. But I guess what I want to ask is why not? Why shouldn't she preach? And I'm specifically asking complementarians because for a long time, I kind of stayed out of the complementarian versus patriarchy debate. And but honestly, the more I deal with complementarians, the more I realize that they have no clue why she shouldn't preach, right? They have no clue. I mean, give them some credit. They recognize that very clearly in the Bible. It says that women should not teach or exercise authority over a man. They should not be elders. They should not be preachers. They should not be guest preachers. They should not preach on Mother's Day. They shouldn't be leading a Sunday school class and things like that. Complementarians know the Bible says that, so they have to believe it. But to be honest, like, I kind of wonder, like, most of these complementarians, like, deep down, if you ask them, why shouldn't she preach? And you're not asking for a Bible verse, you're asking, why did God give you that Bible verse? They really don't know. It's almost like God was like, all right, well, here's my rule. She shouldn't preach. I know it doesn't make any sense, but obey me. And it's like, that's what honestly, I think a lot of complementarians deep down don't understand it, and it kind of seems like an arbitrary rule. Now, to patriarchy people, we understand completely why this is a rule, because we understand that when the pulpit is a powerful thing. But because it's a powerful thing, when you're preaching the words of God, it also has a tendency of creating some blowback. People don't like it. We see this all the time in the New Testament. Peter is preaching and riots break out, right? And the thing is, and to be honest, a lot of these complementarians, they don't have a very high view of the pulpit. And if you look at how they act, they don't really think that there's a powerful thing happening. They'll tell you there's a powerful thing happening when they're preaching, but they don't act like it, right? Because they seek to soften the words of God. They seek to be agreeable. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And so when you're taking all of the oomph behind preaching out of it, why shouldn't she preach, right? Why shouldn't she preach? Let me tell you what got me thinking about this. I was talking to someone in my personal life, and they were telling me about a situation at their church where they were going to change a policy or something in the order of worship, and it was kind of an administrative. A lot of people thought of it as an administrative change, and so the person who was going to announce it, send the email about it, was someone who was not an elder, and it would happen to be a woman. She had a position in the church, but she was not an elder or a deacon or anything like that. And she was going to send the email out about this announcement, and they didn't like that, right? Because they felt like there's an appearance of evil there. Like, we got to avoid anyone thinking that she's the one making this decision, and furthermore, we ought to protect her, right? So in other words, we ought to say, hey, maybe this won't lead to any controversy, but maybe it will. Maybe someone won't like this change at all. And the last thing we want to do is put a woman out there to fight our battles for us, to receive that criticism, to have to endure the pushback there. That's the last that we want to protect our women. This is why women don't belong in the military, because we don't send our women out to fight our battles for us, and rather we fight our battles because we're protecting our women and children and all of that. So, that's what got me thinking about this, right? Because when you put a woman out there exercising authority over a man or preaching on a contentious subject, you're putting her in harm's way, and we ought not to do that. But when you consider how Big Eva operates and the way that they position themselves in the world, you wonder why shouldn't she preach? Like, why did God give us this arbitrary rule? And let me give you an example here. So what we have here is a Woke Preacher Clips thread on Gavin Ortlund. Now, you can't really blame Gavin Ortlund for being effeminate. I mean, his father is Ray Ortlund. I mean, the jokes write themselves. Absolutely no words for this kind of thing. But anyway, so Gavin Ortlund here, he does this thread where I guess Gavin Ortlund wrote this book about theological triage, where you decide how do you rank order where what we call heresy or what we maybe disagree on, and it's important, but we can still be in the same church, we can still get to know love each other, and we don't have to call you a heretic. Like, what are those things that are like core issues versus like the secondary and the tertiary and the, I don't know what the fourth word that fits there is, because I went to public school, but that's okay. The fourth quadrant, not important issues. So he sets these categories up, right? So, number one, that's the core. That's the bounds of orthodoxy. Number two is something that, you're still distinguishes the denominations, but you can agree to disagree, and you're still orthodox. Number three, important issues, but they shouldn't divide us. And number four, issues that are not important at all. So that's Gavin's book. And when I told my brother about this book, he instantly knew what this book was about. This book, he didn't even have to read it. My brother instantly knew. I spoke to my brother. I was like, hey, Gavin Ortlund wrote this book. Here's what it's about. And he goes, oh, that's a scam. That's a scam. And I was like, yeah, well, what do you mean? He instantly saw that the scam is he wants to make room for liberal Christians. He wants to make room for progressive Christians who deny huge parts of the Bible to still be Christians. That's what he wants. That's the goal of this. And you can see it come through. I mean, Woke Preacher Clips went through in very good detail here. He wants to make room for, sodomy promoting pastors, right? Pastors who desire sodomy. He wants to make room for that to be, it's an important issue. We agree to disagree, but we're still Orthodox. We're still believers. You can promote sodomy in your church, and you're not a wolf. You're totally a Christian. Right? He wants to make room for cross-dressing pastors and people that promote cross-dressing. He wants to make room for people that desire a lifelong relationship of sodomy and cross-dressing and the whole thing. If you promote that in the church, look, I don't understand it. I disagree with it, and all of that. But we're still Christians. And my brother is exactly right. That's what this book is about. And quite frankly, it's about tone as well. You see, what he wants to do is you can oppose these things, right? You can oppose sodomy promoting pastors, but you can't call them sodomy promoting pastors. Like, it's about the tone. It's about how you talk about them. Like, if you're going to oppose sodomy promoting pastors, you have to say it like this. You have to say something like, I'm very concerned about that because I think there's a slippery slope and it's not God's best for you, and I'm deeply concerned and troubled by it. That's the only way you can oppose it. You got to oppose it like Matt Chandler did on Vice. It's not God's best for you, like that kind of thing. And so that's what he's trying to do. Like, he's trying to make it so that, yes, you can disagree with them, but you can't actually call it what it is. You can't. And the idea is to soften things and to make the church more attractive in that way to people that are in the sodomy promoting community. So that's what this Gavin Ortlund book is about. It's about soft pedaling all the things that are offensive to the culture. And quite frankly, this is, again, why shouldn't she preach if this is what preaching is? Making pagans and sinners very comfortable in the church so that at least they get saved, even if they still promote sodomy to the day they die. At least they punch their ticket, kind of thing. And if preaching was that, then why shouldn't she preach? Because this is a very effeminate way to talk. And don't hear me saying that effeminate equals error. It doesn't. It doesn't. But the reality is that women have this wonderful, beautiful thing about them, and that's their agreeableness, right? My wife is agreeable, and that's a beautiful thing. And when she communicates with my children, and when my children get hurt, they're sick, when they need comfort, the first choice is mommy. You know what I mean? And of course, they, when they're scared, they'll come to daddy as well. When they feel like they need protection, they'll come to daddy. When they need comfort, they go to mommy, because mommy is soothing, and she's got this agreeableness to her, and that's a beautiful trait for a woman. As a husband, I need a helper. I need someone to be for me. You know what I mean? It'd be very weird if my wife would talk to me about a sin that in my life or something like that in the same way that my brother would. Like, my brother can slap me around a little bit, right? He's going to be like, look, dude, you just got to stop. You're out of control. And, my brother and I, when we talk about our problems, it's a little bit more brutal. It's a little bit more in your face, gruff stuff. It would be very weird, though, if my wife were to talk to me that way. It'd be very weird for any woman to talk to me that way. It's not part of their nature. It's not part of their character. Agreeableness and kind of, smoothing things over and stuff like that. That's the realm of a woman. So if that's how we should preach, Gavin, why shouldn't she preach? Well, a lot of these guys are soft complementarians. They think that's okay for them to preach, so long as they're under the authority of a man. That's not what the Bible says. That's not what the Bible says. In fact, we don't have to wonder why women shouldn't preach, because God explicitly tells us why she shouldn't preach or exercise authority over a man. This is 1 Timothy chapter 2, and these are the words of God. I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. For Adam was formed. Now, this is the why, right? So that's very clear. Complementarians believe that. The why, I don't think complementarians really quite embrace, right? The why is this. He says, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Now, if you don't understand the translation. That's the King James, right? Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. She'll be saved in childbearing. So she shouldn't preach because she was deceived. And so it's not a surprise that when we see women who are preaching, they're deceived and now deceiving others. And the thing is, I think there's a natural reason for this, right? I'm not saying women believe error all the time, because they don't. In fact, we're going to get to something else in just a minute about a woman who certainly seems very solid to me, right? But a lot of these women that are so solid, by the way, they're under the protection of their husbands, who is acting the way a patriarch ought to act, protecting his wife or his daughters and things like that, the way that they're supposed to. And so they're solid. Yeah, these women out there, there are a lot of solid women out there that have ministries to other women and things like that. And you know why they're solid? Because they had a godly father, they had a godly husband. That's why they're solid. Because they've been protected, right? But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. She shouldn't preach because Eve was deceived. And when we see women out there preaching and they're doing the same thing that Gavin is doing, softening the message, smoothing it over so that it's palatable. You see, that kind of preaching is not the kind of preaching we see in the text of Scripture. That's not the kind of preaching that would cause a riot. It's the kind of preaching, quite frankly, that a woman would do naturally. And so, Gavin, why shouldn't she preach? Why shouldn't she preach? Because it comes naturally to her, whereas you're trying really hard to be an effeminate preacher. You learned it. You probably grew up with it. But the point is, it doesn't come naturally to you. You're trying to make everyone follow your example. It does come naturally to women, so why shouldn't she preach? Like, I'm not surprised when I see Beth Moore out there softening her positions on homosexuality or modesty or whatever. It is surprising to watch Gavin Ortlund try to soft pedal pastors who are promoting sodomy and cross-dressing. That is surprising. In any case, so why shouldn't she preach, right? But you see, this is kind of endemic to Big Eva, because none of these guys really seem to understand why God made women the way he made them and why he made men the way he made them. Here's another example, right? So, here's Ray Ortlund again. Again, the jokes write themselves. This is Griffin Guledge. Griffin Guledge and I had a little bit of an interaction a few years ago, and at the time he had, I feel like a real idiot, because he convinced me that he wasn't, he was a non-combatant. He was just a regular Joe. I've followed him since then. He's definitely not. He tricked me back then. But anyway, this is Griffin Guledge, and what he's doing here is he's sharing a Gospel Coalition article that a lot of people sent me, because a lot of people really liked this article. And this is an article about deconstruction, and it's against the deconstruction movement in evangelicalism. And it's by a woman named Alyssa Childers. And from what I understand, Alyssa in general is solid. The article is solid. It's a good article. And so I don't want to take anything away from Alyssa. She did a great job with this article and all of that kind of thing. But I do want you to see just the upside down subversive posturing of Big Eva, because what they do is the deconstruction movement in Christianity is a lightning rod, right? When you come out against deconstruction, oftentimes now you're fielding all kinds of epithets. You're a racist. You're probably a homophobe. You're probably a bigot. You're probably a QAnon fundie. All that kind of stuff. This is when you do this. When you put your stuff out there, I'm against deconstruction. You're going to start receiving all kinds of hate, right? And Big Eva knows this. Big Eva knows this. But what Big Eva does, and they do this, we've covered this mentality numerous times on this channel. What they do is they often send a woman to be the tip of the spear before they come out when the coast is clear. You see, Griffin came out when the coast was clear. Alyssa was the tip of the spear. She writes this great article against deconstruction. And now Griffin Guledge is like, me too. Oh, yeah, me too. I've been very deeply concerned about this over time. I just don't think this is... I've been thinking about this for a long time. Long time. The coast is clear now, Griffin, so come on out. And it wasn't just Griffin, I'm picking on Griffin here, but a lot of men did this. A lot of men shared this article and came out of the closet against deconstruction. I've been deeply concerned. Goodness gracious. I've been thinking about, I've never said anything, but like now the coast is clear. Alyssa has done the initial work, and this is gross, guys. The way that they've kind of let her go to the front. She's now in the front lines, and they come in behind her. Now the coast is clear. We know the Gospel Coalition's published it. Now I can say it. It's like it's really disgusting. It's I don't know. Just like it makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel dirty. Big Eva does this all the time. I remember there was an article, an ERLC article, where they let a woman come out and say something completely ridiculous. And they were all like, "Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too." It's like, man, these guys are something. These guys are something. And of course, Griffin like instantly softens it, right? So he's not even as direct and right as Alyssa is. He's sharing it, and he's coming in behind her to be like, "Yeah, me too." But then like the very next tweet is, "Oh yeah, but it's not a boundary line." Like instantly softens it, instantly reverts back to his softening, his agreeableness, his effeminate posture, because. Quite frankly, this is who Big Eva is. That's the reality. This is who Big Eva is. This is not surprising in any way. It's just as gross the second time and the third time that you see it as it was the first time, but it's not surprising. And this is the truth, guys. Like, she shouldn't preach because it is. Let me say this. When you see a woman in her role and she's focused on working at home, on her family, keeping her house, teaching her children, things like that, comforting her children. It is so dignified. It is beautiful. When I see my wife comfort my children, I might not agree that they need comfort at that moment. I think they might need a little bit more tough love, but it is still beautiful to watch my child when they get sick or they get hurt to like snuggle up with their mommy. I love that, and there's everything dignified about that. There's definitely everything honorable about that, and it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful to see. But then when you see men allowing women to stick their neck out to do the job that they're supposed to be doing because it's a dangerous job, because when you're handling the Word of God and you're preaching the words of God, it's going to rub some people the wrong way. It always does. And when you allow a woman to stick her neck out there and you know full well that this could potentially lead to disaster, shame on Gospel Coalition. Shame on you. You let her, you throw her to the wolves, and then you get in behind her and you soften it like it would be nice. So why shouldn't she preach? That's my question. If you're going to turn the pulpit into an effeminate practice, then why shouldn't she preach? If your preaching is effeminate, why shouldn't she preach? God's not arbitrary. She shouldn't preach because what goes on in the pulpit, what goes on when you're exercising authority over men, it's ugly. And it takes a little bit of we need someone to be, a bit of a whipping boy sometimes. I don't know. I think that's all I had to say. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope you found this podcast helpful. God bless. So the video you just watched was actually recorded a little over a week ago, maybe close to 2 weeks ago. And I was thinking it through because it didn't seem complete to me. Like it seemed like something was missing. And so I actually uploaded it to YouTube, but I didn't post it. But I saw another little episode happen, and it's just another great example of the kind of thing I'm talking about. And this actually involves Griffin again. He is a huge weasel, this guy, a huge weasel. And so I posted that I was going to drop a video about him. And of course he protected his tweets. And again, why shouldn't she preach? If this is what preachers are, they field some criticism and someone's clearly going to make fun of their ridiculous reactions to a ridiculous situation, which we're going to go into in a minute. And then what you're out there and you're like, well, I have to protect my tweets now. Like why shouldn't she preach? You're a pastor, you're a preacher, you're out there making moral judgments and claims. You should probably stand behind them. That's what a pastor should do. That's what a preacher should do. That's why a pastor or a preacher needs to be male, because we don't want to put our women out in the front lines, doing all of that kind of dirty work. Now this is the thing. I understand that a lot of patriarchy people, there's not a lot of patriarchy people out there, and there's a lot of people who think that women can do anything a man can do. And so, they're out there and they're in the front lines doing all kinds of stuff. I don't support it. However, this is an interesting little situation that we have here. So, as you can see, the Griffin Guledge has now protected his tweets because, Anyway, so what this all stemmed from was there was an article, or not an article, a tweet from Megan Basham. I think that's how you pronounce her name, Megan Basham. And again, if I'm mispronouncing that, I am sorry. Anyway, so allegedly, she saw Dr. Russell Moore, the courageous, reliable Russell Moore in the airport. And so she asked him about, his support of Francis Collins, who, it turns out he's kind of a ghoul. And I think there's more stuff coming, most likely, about the kinds of experiments and the kinds of funding that Francis Collins funded and supported. And a lot of it's already twisted. This guy is pretty twisted. And Russell Moore, lent his little... He's so courageous that he lent his ferocious, anti-abortion stances. He threw all his weight behind this guy who's involved in all kinds of very questionable experimentation. Anyway, so Megan asked him some questions about that in the airport, just kind of off the cuff. Well, providential, right? I mean, you haven't had the opportunity to clear up your support of Francis Collins, and Megan is here ready to give you that opportunity. And apparently he ran off and did not want to answer any questions. And Megan decided to go to Twitter about this, to make it, public about this meeting. And this is the thing, we weren't born yesterday, right? Because when Russell Moore says no comment, call my office on Monday, he's never picking up that phone. You're going to talk to his secretary. He's going to screen your calls. He's not going to clear up anything because this is a huge wart. And the thing about Big Eva is they never apologize. They always double down. They don't think that there was anything wrong with supporting this ghoul, Francis Collins, and his weirdo experimentations and his lies about COVID and his lies about vaccinations and things like that. They don't think there was anything wrong with that, but they know they can't go on record. So when she calls his office on Monday, nothing's going to happen. And so she decided to take to Twitter to make that very clear. So when he doesn't respond, everyone's going to know exactly what happened. He ran off like a little baby when a woman approached him with some questions. He ran off like a little baby when a woman approached him with some questions. Now, if you are on Twitter and you find this tweet from Megan Basham, you're going to see a whole list of men maladying on Russell Moore. Milady. They're trying to protect. They're simping for Russell Moore. There's a whole wall of them, and they're simping against a woman. So this is so amazing. Like everyone is clutching their pearls because a woman asked Dr. Russell Moore some questions that he doesn't want to answer because they're very embarrassing and they would require him to apologize and take some ownership of his mistakes. He doesn't want to do that. And so she goes to Twitter to make that very clear. And everyone's like, well, how dare you? How dare you approach him in the airport? Like, that's rude. And it's unbelievable. And this is this one I wanted to point out in particular. This is Jake Meter. Again, if Jake is preaching, if Jake is a public theologian, whatever he wants to go, an author, then why shouldn't she preach? Listen to this. Listen to Jake's response. Again, he's maladying for Russell Moore against a woman. This is so there's like inception here. It's I don't even know what to even say about it. He says,
I'm old enough to remember when most conservative Christians would think that, quote, demanding a public figure give me their attention in the middle of the airport so I can grill them about stuff, end quote, is rude.
he's got to swarm. We got to protect Russell Moore. And his big offense is Russell Moore should not be challenged in public. Russell Moore can't be asked questions in public. Protect Russell Moore. Listen, why shouldn't she preach? If he's out in public, he can be a man. He can respond and answer for his own ridiculous opinions, his own ridiculous statements, his own ridiculous support of what's turning out to be quite a bit of a monster in Francis Collins. Like, he should be able to, he's a big boy, public or not. I mean, if somebody were to ask me questions in public and, I wanted to answer them, I would say, okay, I'd answer them. Or I'd just say, go pound sand. And I wouldn't say, call my office, because that's passive aggressive, right? Like, if Washington Post gets in my face and says, oh, are you Eddie Robles from the YouTube channel? I would say, hey, I don't want to talk to you. Go pound sand. And I would say, don't call me. I wouldn't even bring it up because I don't want them to call me, because I won't answer their questions, because I don't want to help them sell newspapers, because I think that they're the enemy, right? But I'd at least tell them I don't talk to the media. That's it. I don't talk to the media. I did at one point. I don't anymore. That's the end of it, right? That's if that's what if you don't want to talk to Megan Basham, just tell her. Don't do the passive aggressive like call my office on Monday. Well, we all know that's a big FU. We get it, right? We get it. But Jake is here. That's rude. How dare you? How dare you? It's like, dude, he's a big boy. What? Like, and then everyone in their mother is here, and it's like they're here to milady for Russell Moore. What's going on here? He's a big boy. He can handle himself. I mean, I don't know. And again, it's not like it's a threatening person, right? I just don't get it. Now, anyway, so there's Jake. He's, he can't even fathom. Let's take a look at this guy. He can't even fathom a man having to answer for his ridiculousness. He can't. Look at this guy. There's Jake. All right. So, but Griffin Gouledge, he also got in on this, right? He also got it. He said something as well. Now, you might think that I was too late, right? I'm too late to get this tweet because he blocked it. Well, your boy already knew this was going to happen, and so guess what he did as soon as he tweeted this? He screenshotted it. I know these guys so well, okay? This is just how they do it. Instead of answering for their own stupidity, instead of answering for the things that they believe and all that, they try to dodge, they try to avoid it, they try to brush it under the rug. I mean, it's so passive aggressive. As a man, you should deal with your nonsense head on, right? But instead, you run for the hills. Oh, call my office on Monday. And you do these weird things where you protect your tweets because you can't handle anyone questioning your nonsense. But anyway, here's what Griffin said. Again, this is about miladying for Russell Moore, a man who is too scared to answer questions from a woman. And they got to protect him from this woman, this big bad woman, Megan Basham. I mean, take a look. She certainly seems pretty scary. I mean, let's just take a quick look here. We got Jake. Here she is. I mean, honestly, would you want to answer questions from her? I don't know. She seems pretty scary to me, especially when you have nonsense that you have to defend. In any case, here's what Griffin says. He's talking about Megan. He says,
people act like this. And then call you an elitist if you don't give them the time of day. You can carry the name of Jesus, or you can use the gotcha interrogation tactics of the Pharisees. It can't be both.
So Megan's a Pharisee. Why is Megan a Pharisee? You ask. Well, according to Griffin, because she happened to see Russell Moore at the airport. It's not like she was hunting him down, by the way. They just happened to run into each other. That's the story she told anyway. And she asked him a few questions that he didn't want to answer, and she knew full well he wouldn't want to answer them because, again, Big Eva is allergic to taking ownership of their nonsense. They never apologize. They always double down. So she knew that going in. So she asked him a few questions, and she got the FU, call me on Monday. She knows what that means. That means I'm never going to hear from you. And so she went to Twitter. And Griffin says that's the interrogation tactics of the Pharisees. Well, Griffin, I'd certainly like to hear chapter and verse on that one, where it says that what the Pharisees did was they would try to ask you questions about statements you made to see what your opinion is, and they will know full well that you're not going to answer them. See, that's not what the Pharisees did with Jesus. You see, what the Pharisees did with Jesus, they would try to trap him in a sin he hadn't done. You see what I'm saying? So that's the difference. It's in one case, it's a fake sin. It's a fake issue. And so they're trying to maneuver him and trap him to admit to something that he hadn't done. And on this hand, he has done the thing that she's asking him about. He put his weight behind the ghoul. And she wants to know why. She wants to know how much he knew. In fact, I kind of want to know that as well. How much did Russell Moore know as he's promoting this ghoul about the funding for, the abortion cells and the vaccine stuff? How much information did he know about it? That's what I'd like to know. How much did Russell Moore know? Because I have a feeling that Russell Moore knew about all of it before he supported him. I think he knew about all of it, and he supported him anyway because he's a freaking snake. By the way, people ask as if acted as if Megan kind of hunted this guy down and never approached him in any other way. Well, that's actually not the story that Megan told. Megan allegedly said that this was a coincidence. I saw him in the airport, and I've asked for Russell Moore's comments through other channels before, and he declined those times as well, citing busyness and sickness, which it certainly seems to me like that was the lie detector test determines that was a lie. He just didn't want to answer the questions because now she's got an opportunity where he's just in the airport and he's not sick because he's in the airport and he still doesn't want to answer the questions. And that's the bottom line. And so Griffin's over here and calling her a Pharisee for asking questions. Griffin, I think you learned the wrong lesson from the Pharisees, right? It's not that they were asking questions to Jesus. That was the problem. The problem was that they were trying to get him to confess to sinning where he had not sinned. They were trying to trap him into a fake sin, right? Russell Moore has actually done the deed here, right? And so she wants to know exactly how far that deed goes. That's not what the Pharisees did, Griffin. But anyway, this is the effeminate nature of so much of evangelical leaders. It's unbelievable that they will milady for Russell Moore, don't touch the Lord's anointed, and all of that, and then they block you, they protect their tweets, they kind of weasel you, and things like that. We even had Jacob Denhollander get in on this as well. Jacob Denhollander, I thought he was a feminist, and yet he's getting in on the Megan bashing as well. Interesting stuff indeed. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.